Well, hi, and thanks so much for joining me in my shop. What I'm planning to do with this radio is carry on with the alignment process for the AM band and the shortwave band. That's the local oscillator front end. I may revisit the IF alignment briefly too, just to be sure it's correct. But two things to do before that. One is talk a little bit about what went wrong with this radio, and for me to try to clear my name on this. And the other thing is, I'll do the other one right now. So we're going to be using this sweep signal generator in a little while, and of course my sweep signal generator had a bunch of broken buttons all along here. Look, they're not broken anymore, and that's because Mr. Mike, excuse me for the pronouncing the last name, Pagel, in New York State sent me, I guess that's a picture of him there listening to his radio, sent me a bag of buttons for my sweep generator. So thank you very much. There are more buttons that are cracked on that and ready to split off at any moment, so I've got a backup supply. Fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Mike. This is his ham radio QSL card. For those of you who aren't ham radio guys, lots of ham radio people have cards like this, postcards like this, and they mail them around. Now a lot of this is done without these cards anymore. It's just done on the internet with a shared database. But anyway, there's a card. I've got one of these around somewhere for me, from back in the day when I was Mr. CB Man. Wow. Okay, I was never Mr. CB Man. Don't take that literally. Okay, next thing is talk a little about what happened to this capacitor and how did I get so fooled by it. Okay, so just to review, I changed these two capacitors, turned on the radio, and it went crazy. And of course the first message is, well, what did you do wrong with these two capacitors? So I examined this question very carefully, and I may have done it off camera, some of it off camera, and some of it I may have done in the high speed part in the last video where I crushed a period of time where I'm poking around here. Because I didn't post everything on the video. You didn't watch everything I did to this radio to try to track down where the howling was coming from. I did actually sit in here and examine nearly all the wiring in it one day. Lots of stuff. So anyway, let's go back to this. So of course, make a change, have a problem, must be the change. So I went back, I examined what I'd done very carefully. And I also did a kind of test on it that was very convincing for me. I won't repeat it here, but I can show you. Well, I can repeat it. It doesn't really matter. So we're just taking an ohm meter. Okay. And if I'm suspicious about this little soldered connection here, I put one lead on the lead wire on one side of the connection, and I put the meter on the other side of the connection. Can you see what it did? It went to zero, of course. I did this exact test. That convinced me this connection's good. This connection probably was good. This is where the offensive capacitor was grounded. Now the other connection's a little hard to do that with, but I did it as best I could, and I found that the connection of the capacitor lead to the terminal it's connected to was 100%. And that's why I never returned to that after that. That's the first thing, one of the first things I never returned to it, being utterly convinced that I'd proven that the connections I made were conductive. And you know what? I bet you they were. The connections I made for this capacitor were completely conductive. The problem is there's more wires involved. Now I've run into this before, and this kind of thing can happen to anybody at any time. So that's why it's worth dwelling on just for a minute here. So this upper connection is as simple as it gets. It's just two wires put together. What can go wrong? This lower connection is very different. It's a terminal with my new capacitor connected to it, a wire connected to it, and another wire connected to it. This last wire is going up into this coil here. It's a very, very fine wire, very hard to see at a glance, hidden by all the schmozzle in here. I never saw it. I never really thought about it, frankly. What I believe happened is, as I made the new capacitor connection, I disabled or weakened or did something to the light wire connection from the coil here to the same terminal, invisibly. Of course, my testing, I'm focused on the capacitor. That's how I missed it. That is how I missed it. So I just don't want you to think that I didn't in my head right away realize that make a change, have a problem. I better go back and check the change. I did that. I promise you. If I had a Bible here, I'd swear on the Bible. I really did do everything. That just goes to show you what can happen. The other thing about me is that, hey, I'm pretty distractible. Okay, and in here in the shop, I like the distractions. I like being pulled off to look at something funny going on with a meter. I mean, I get a kick out of that. I often think, oh, there's something here worth finding out about. There's something interesting going on here, and so off I go. So of course, if you don't drain out offending signals from something like the screen grids, if you don't manage to drain it out and get rid of it, you're going to end up with all kinds of weirdness all over the place. You know, you got signals coming out of the end of the radio and managing to get perhaps right back into the start again, running around, making oscillations, going through the converter tube, this first tube. Each time a set of frequencies goes through it, they get, interfered with by the local oscillator, and you get another whole set coming out, which if they're working their way around and coming through again, now you get a whole set going in, new set. Crazy stuff. Yeah. Anyway, the happy news is that's over. What did I just see happen there? Did this meter just jump all over the place when I did this? Must be just a coincidence here. So, I think we're all set to go here. First thing I want to do is I want to listen to this radio and get a good handle on just how well or not well it's working as it is now. So let's fire it up. I've got it hooked up to just an antenna. Just an outdoor antenna. And we're going to start on the AM band.
In the States, via Boulder City, Nevada. Mike, you know Nevada pretty well. Where is Boulder City?
Way north. No, sir. South.
South? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the area well. I don't know if they have a large Jewish population, a large Jewish demographic, but at least one parent thought it was okay to dress up her 13-year-old as Hitler.
Who dresses up their 13-year-old?
Also true. It's her son, a 13-year-old boy.
Who spends time on a broadcast radio station talking about something like this? Really, come on.
And it took
Okay, so that station is, I think, 640.
That survived the Holocaust to write in to the Las Vegas Review-Journal to tell them just how...
I'm not justifying dressing your kid up as Hitler. That doesn't sound so good to me.
What happened in the aftermath, and the Facebook post has been deleted, but apparently
10,
the mom
20.
of this kid said, "I'm the proud parent of the boy in the Hitler costume."
Wow, it's just about
and my
dead
son
on
didn't
640
mean to
here.
upset anyone. He needed a last-minute costume, and he put that together today.
Pretty good.
No, we don't worship Hitler
Now.
or agree with what he did.
Worship. Okay,
That's your go-to last...
let's just keep going up. So most radios should receive this station. Some are going to receive 740. That's 710. That's actually quite good. Well, it might be 740. It's a French station, so compared to other radios, this one's working really well. That buzzing sound is interference from who knows where in my house. Now, if we get some stations up here, it's really surprising, in fact. Let's see. Would be surprising. Okay, so, my impression on the AM band is that this radio is actually working fairly well already. even without doing any more alignment work. It's kind of surprising considering the parts I replaced. You think replacing those parts are going to throw the alignment off it, and maybe it has. Maybe we'll find out. This is one hot cookie of a radio and it's working well. So let's try shortwave. Okay. That's just a dirty switch thing. I never... Didn't we hear it for just a fraction there? Let's go back to AM. What's happening here? Okay, AM's perfectly normal. Very, very weak. I think we can say that on shortwave now. Where are we on shortwave? We're up at 16 megahertz. It's early in the morning. The sun's barely come up. So, yeah, you know what? We might pick stuff up here. Let's see. My tripod is covered with fish hooks. When I move it around, it grabs every wire I can find in the shop and gets tangled in it. That's really where we are. Just to give an idea how slow I'm turning these controls. Control the dial. You can't even see my hand move, can you? You can see my thumb flexing. I'm not even turning it yet. There, now it's turning. Well, that was nothing. Going right through the 19 meter band. Unless the alignment is way, way, way up. Oh, what was that? Okay, pretty dead. According to this is 18, almost 19 megahertz. Doesn't sound... I have trouble believing that. This is almost certainly Saudi Arabia you're listening to. That'd be a man singing the Quran, probably. It should really, this pointer should be down around here. Below the 18, like 17.5 or somewhere in there. That would put the 15, that put the 19 meter band or 15 megahertz up around in here. Let's go try it again. I don't hear anything in there. Okay. Something though, eh? And you know what? This is the high end of the band. This is where the radio is straining its most to work. Let's go down. It's still showing that it's 16 something. That's really not likely to be. It's much more likely to be like 15,800 or... more in there, but it's very faint. That's amateur radio, ham radio. a 20-meter ham radio band. So this is a European band now. Get rid of some of the static a little bit here. So this is a European band in the 13.5 megahertz, somewhere around there. You can often hear stuff. Just extremely hard to. Now I've got no knob on here. Add a bigger knob, this would be a little easier to do. Okay, let's keep going. So that's a telecommunication signal of some sort.
Para nuevas familias.
Ah,
Los servicios de telefonía informática se han ampliado considerablemente, lo que ha mejorado las posibilidades de comunicación de nuestro pueblo. Aún quedan problemas por resolver, algunos provocados por el bloqueo.
so I'm going to guess that that's Spanish or Portuguese. It could be South American, it could be Radio Spain from Europe. The volume's running around 80% this whole time. Okay, to me that sounded like a language you'd find in India. But I don't know for sure. And plus, you know, countries broadcast in all kinds of languages. Just hearing the language doesn't guarantee who's doing it. Okay, this is Cuba. That's their national anthem we just heard a bit of. Here we are. 25-meter band. And as you can see, chances of getting anything down low here is getting pretty small now. So that's, as a guess, probably Cuba, but it could be Radio Marti, the American propaganda broadcast into Cuba, which is very easy to pick up here, almost all day and night. And you know, it's just Spanish. Most of the time it's Spanish, so you really have to be careful. Are you listening to the United States or are you listening to Cuba when you hear Spanish on the radio? Here, anyway, in this part of the world. So this is Radio China now. Radio China buys time on transmitters all over the world so they can get their signal to where they want it to go. A lot of countries are trying to broadcast to their expats around the world. So there are, you know, people from China, say, living in Canada, and you know, it'd be great for them to listen to news from the homeland in their original language. So some of this is done for that reason. So if China wanted to send a broadcast to Canada, I suppose it would be North America really, they might want to utilize a transmitter in North America, and that's what they do. So wow, receiving China here, probably China all over the world, is easy. That's why it's so strong too. And by the way, I do pick up Chinese radio signals from China, from the Chinese mainland, and even out to their, I guess that would be the East Coast on the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, I can pick those up at the right time of day. So and a lot of those are domestic broadcasts, Chinese people talking to Chinese people, and me listening. Now really, we shouldn't pick up anything below here. So I say, but wow, maybe it's a good day for shortwave. So what I'm doing when I'm tuning fast like this, I'm listening for the pss, 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 as you pass a signal, right? That. Chinese, that same one we were just listening to. So this is quite a ways down the band. That also indicates it's probably local. Oh, what is that?
Yes. Halloween's right around the corner. Seems like once a year about.
Okay, so the volume is down to like 30-40% now. This is by far, this is the most powerful thing we've come across. And look where it is on the band here. 7.
All summer has been like Halloween. You know, it's becoming a year-long, whatever you call it. I mean, because the spiritual warfare and the spiritual intensity, just I can't ever remember a summer that was as intense as this. 30-some years of history, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I know some of it's nutty politics, but I'll tell you, I think we don't have long to wait until everything goes boom.
Well, then you shouldn't wait, should you? If you think everything's going boom, you should do something about it, for crying out loud. Okay, so now that broadcast is coming from the United States, most certainly from a religious broadcaster out of the States. Pretty certainly. And that'd be why it'd be so strong at this fairly low frequency at this time of day. But really, it's pretty impressive.
That's scripture for a lot of people.
And there is a lot of religious broadcasting out of the United States. Yeah, maybe I should stop in the shop and go listen to shortwave radio because I think it's really hopping.
Yo no creo que haya una cantidad importante de gente que respalde al régimen, pero yo creo que hay que insistir en esto, que es que de alguna manera la lucha por el rescate de la libertad de persona es una lucha contra el reloj, porque mientras...
¿Por qué? I think he said por qué there. So it's either, again, Spanish or Portuguese. I don't know my languages that well. This, again, it's probably local, in the sense that it's being transmitted out in North America somehow. Yeah, this could be Radio Marti again in a language other than Spanish. Who knows? I don't know. To do this more seriously, you need a digital radio that you know for sure what frequency you're on. You have to know somehow what frequency you're on exactly. And then there's a pile of fantastic internet resources to tell you what it is you're hearing. So as a hobby, this hobby has gone in two directions at once. It's shot upwards. It's fantastic to listen to shortwave radio now because of the resources and the efficiency and the digital radios and all that kind of stuff. But back in the day, even when I was in high school, let's say, radios were like this with strings and pointers, and you never knew where you were tuned exactly. You had to listen to the station for 10, 20 minutes before they would identify themselves. And then what? There's no internet. You had to have a reference book with you, which was expensive. There was something called the World Radio and Television Handbook. Everybody got it. Big book like this, the WRTH or something like that. Everybody had that book. Of course, the book was published once a year. It was out of date the month after it was published because the people making choices on frequencies and transmitters and that in all the broadcasts were moving things around because conditions were changing and their predictions were off, all that kind of stuff. So it was really hard to do this hobby. You spend a lot of time listening to one station. But frankly, for me, this was the internet of the 1970s. This allowed me to listen directly to foreign countries when they broadcasted in English, and they pretty much all did, and there were many of them broadcasting back then, and listen to what they had to say. Mostly they talk about domestic issues. They seldom talked about international stuff and that, because they're trying to get the word out to the world of what's going on in their own country, and also inform expatriates around the world in that. But some countries were very focused on producing news. Obviously, the BBC, it still is. Voice of America was fairly well respected back then. Don't know today. I'm not trying to suggest anything. And although Voice of America now is much more local to the stations or countries you're trying to broadcast in, it's certainly not local to North America anymore. So it's hard to hear Voice of America, especially in English. It's very seldom in English anymore. So, okay, I'm talking too much about shortwave here. It kind of is what it's all about, though, isn't it? Fixing these radios. Let's go further. Well, that sounds really... Orlando. So, powerful signal, speaking in Spanish, talking about Orlando, almost certainly Radio Marti, propaganda wing of the United States. It really is the only way to refer to it, by the way. I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just trying to categorize it properly. You know, you have domestic services, and you have commercial services, and you have propaganda services. Now, that was kind of curious. What was that? Kind of just was there for a moment. I don't know. I can't believe I'm picking stuff up here. This is not right. What time is it? It's 8:36 in the morning. Oh my gosh. I'm going to stop and just go listen to shortwave radio. Below 6 megahertz, 5.8, 5.9 megahertz, a lot of American religious broadcasters right in there. You know, maybe this is the result of the new antenna I've been working on and experimenting with. Okay, so that's telecommunications. That's teletype.
Why would you say that? Christ was first taken.
Religious. Wow. Well, okay, so shortwave is... This just can't be this radio or my antenna. There must be something going on. Like something from the sun. Something... That's ham radio down there. So, wow, okay. That was great. Wow, I had a lot of fun doing that. I hope you found that fun, too. I do like listening to radios once in a while, aside from fixing them. So, bottom line is, this radio's working really well now. I'm sure it's worth going through the alignment process, particularly to kind of get the dial more accurate. But wow, it's working really, really well. That means I have every chance to degrade its operation here. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a few minutes. I'm going to read up on the alignment process, get the equipment in place, and next time I turn the camera on, we'll be ready to start the first step of alignment. So much fun.